Welcome to the Monday Monologue. Well, today I want to use this preamplifier that a viewer emailed me about and sent to me about the problems with some of this Chi-Fi audio gear. And this is supposed to be a clone of some sort of carry preamp that has got some pretty complicated electronics in it, in addition to having just a basic tube board. And he had it for about 2 weeks. I'm pretty sure he bought it from one of those, direct from China websites. And again, 2 weeks, the thing's dead. Just dead as a doornail. And this viewer, I don't think knows a lot about electronics, electricity, just maybe the basic stuff like how to check a fuse sort of thing. And he actually had an issue where this wire got broken off the power supply or the power switch connector, and he was like, yeah, this is outside of my understanding. Would you take a look at it? And I told him, it's like, there's no schematic. I don't know what's going on with it. I have no way to know if I can repair it or not. He was like, well, I'm going to keep the tubes, and if it just doesn't look like it's something you can fix, then you just use it for parts or whatever and just write it off. And he told me he paid $400 for this, and was even complaining that the shipping was kind of high. So it might have been $250 plus $150 shipping or something. I don't know. But these sell on eBay for about $500 plus shipping, which on eBay is not really expensive. I think on these direct from China, they have the stuff at a really cheap price, and then the shipping's really high, so you can't return it. And when he contacted the seller that it died on him and what they were going to do, they basically told him to pound sand. Good luck. Paid it for you, kind of a thing. They're not going to do anything. And honestly, it would cost more to ship it back to China, which is weird. The shipping from China to the U.S. isn't real expensive, but when you try to go the other way, it's ridiculous. I had to mail a couple of tubes back to China years ago that I bought off Amazon, and the shipping was like $180 for 2 tubes. And it was like $20 to come this way. But I digress. Got this thing in. It's getting 120 volts to this power board that's in the back. And I'll show you the inside of it here in a minute. And there was nothing coming out of it. There was no 120 coming out. There was no, reference signal that was supposed to go to the processor board in the front that these knobs are connected to. And it just wasn't doing anything. So took this board out, started playing around with it, and realized that there was a little power transformer on this board that was a potted in plastic kind of a thing that was dead. It was open winding, and so nothing was going to work. And of course, there's no markings on it at all. It doesn't say what voltage it is, how many milliamps, part number, nothing. It's just a blue transformer with nothing on it. So desoldered the transformer from the board, hoping that there was some printing on the board itself underneath the transformer, and there was nothing. So the little TO220 voltage regulator had a part number on it. When I looked that up, it's a 12 volt regulator. So I know 12 volts is supposed to, be the output of this board, but I also didn't know, did it fry all the other electronics in it? Because there's like a couple of 20-pin IC chips in the front, the logic stuff, and, did it fry all that? I don't know. And so I got a wall wart that was 12 volts and pulled up the regulator, put the, wired this wall wart up to the circuit board here, and it powers up. And so we've got that far. We know this thing is in this delay mode, and then the thing that's not good is there's a relay on this board that's also not turning on for some reason. I don't know what's going on with that, but I know that now the logic's working. And so I got to fix this power board, and it's got some really junky looking capacitors and stuff on it, and like I said, it's got this no name transformer, and then I've got to figure out like what kind of transformer will replace this. So I've got to like measure the pin spacing and get on Mauser and try to find a transformer that'll replace this thing. And it's not like, you're working on a car and you need some brake pads, you go up to AutoZone and you just tell them what you got. This thing's doesn't tell you anything, and there's no schematic available. So I'm having to kind of reverse engineer this little board, which is fairly simple. And anyway, I emailed the guy back, and I was like, I think for probably about $200 for my time and research, and if I had worked on a dozen of these and I knew go order this transformer and solder it in and it'll fix it, that's a different story, right? I'm having to like figure out what's wrong and then do the research to find what part will sub into this, and then put it in. And then I told him, it's like, and there's no warranty. Like, if this thing develops another problem a month from now, it's not on me because I didn't design or build this thing, and the rest of the parts in here look just as cheap. And so I guess it's one of those things, if you were a DIYer and you could fix this yourself, that maybe it makes sense to buy one of these at a really low price point and just hope for the best. And then if it doesn't pan out, and I'm sure there's going to be people in the comments that are saying, oh, I bought one of those, I've been using it for 5 years and it's been flawless. It's like, well, yeah, I'm sure some of them are, but some of them aren't. And this is an example of what can happen when you're using really substandard parts in something this complicated. And it's got like, I don't know if you can hear it, it's got like a relay step attenuator board, and then this switches between the inputs, and it's got all these little relays back here in the back, and I can show you, here's kind of what the inside looks like. This is the power board that's dead, and then over here there are these giant heat sinks on these transistors, which I'm not sure what they do, whether they're voltage regulators or what they are, but they got electrolytic capacitors like that far away from them. And how long are those going to last? And so, like, if I was going to fix this, I would try to get those capacitors like somehow away from these big heat sinks. And I still got to figure out what's going on with this relay. It may end up being a thing where I have to hotwire this transformer so that you turn it on in the back and then you push this button and then it turns on. I'm sure the customer's not going to be happy with that solution. And there may be something fried in this logic board that turns on that relay in the back. I don't know. And so I'm going to be investing in finding this transformer, putting it in, and then it may still have problems. So, yeah, this isn't normally the kind of stuff I want to work on. And over the years, we have looked at a lot of different made China tube products. And this is easily the most complicated one that I've worked on as far as the electronics. And I would say, if you're going to go down this road playing with this stuff, look for the simple point-to-point wired stuff, like the A12. That was a pretty simple amplifier that didn't have a lot of crazy, switching circuits and relays and all that kind of stuff. It was an easy thing to reverse engineer, and it was a really simple circuit. And it's one of the reasons that I tell people get the MuseShare X7 over the Wilsonton R8, is the R8 has that push button where you cycle between the different sources with relay boards, and it's just a lot of complication with a logic circuit where if that goes bad, what are you going to do? It feels like that some people have had some luck getting parts for those Wilsonton amps. And so, there is that, but the MuseShare just isn't going to have those issues. And so would be my recommendation, is if you're going to purchase this kind of stuff, I would not. If somebody asked me about buying one of these, it'd be absolutely not. I mean, I wouldn't buy one. This stuff just scares me how cheap it is and how complicated it is. And so I'm probably going to order the replacement transformer, try to figure that out, put it in this board, see if things start working, and then if the owner wants to pay the $200 repair bill, I'll ship it back to him and we could listen to this thing and, just kind of see what that's about. But if he doesn't want it, I guess I'll have another preamp. Anyway, it is what it is. And that's kind of what you're stepping into when you're buying this stuff. And so, you've been warned. The listening room. Yeah, I'm still doing a lot of research on that. I reached out to an audio engineering company and they came back with a quote of 10 grand to design the room. And yeah, that's not in my budget. And so, been just watching a bunch of different stuff, learning a bunch of different stuff, and I plan on doing a really detailed video series on this room build and the design of it, and why we're picking the room dimensions we are, and why we're using these materials to build it with, and this building kind of process and stuff, and what maybe a higher end one could look like, and what I'm doing. And there's a lot of stuff that's still on the table. I still haven't even sat down with the architect. I'm waiting for the people to come out and survey my property. And so, don't know what we're doing yet, but I think it's going to be really cool. And hopefully that you can incorporate some of this information when you're choosing a room in your house to make your listening room. And then, I probably, if I was starting from scratch and this room that we're in wasn't already my workshop, that this would be a better listening room. But then this is, you can't see it, but behind here there's a whole build out of like cabinets and desktop space for computer workstations and stuff that are all built in this room, that I'd have to tear all that out. And there's part of this room is set up as for being able to do some darkroom stuff in it for my photography. And so it would just, it's like almost easier to just go build another building than it is to try to repurpose this room. And so, yeah, it may be that I end up moving some of my workshop out to the new building. I don't know yet. I need to, right now my whole work area is just a wreck. And I need to spend some time organizing this stuff, organizing my parts better. I'll get into that in another video. Maybe talk about that, about organizing a shop, do a little video about that. But anyway, that's what's going on this week. And we'll do a little follow-up on this. If you've been following my Elikit video, really, really nice sounding amplifiers. I'll just put that out there right now. We're going to be doing a bunch of tube rolling. We're going to be doing some audio analyzer suite testing with different tubes and see what that changes as far as the power output, how the bias impacts the power, all that kind of stuff. And so I think there's going to be a lot of fun afterwards, or after building this, to do. I've got some KT170s, I've got KT120s, I've got several different pairs of KT88s we can try in it. I've got some KT90s. I mean, we'll see what all of that does. And so that's going to be fun, I think. And I think that's going to be maybe a good pair of amplifiers to power these Gershman speakers in my new room. And I still haven't done a follow-up on my current room. It's actually, I was kind of dramatic about saying that it just sounds terrible. It doesn't sound terrible. It still sounds nice, but it's not what I was expecting. And I want better than just average. I want something exceptional. And to do that is not going to happen in this current room. So that's kind of where that is. That was just me being dramatic. It sounds nice. I'm still enjoying listening to music in that room with these. Actually, I think the Quad S5s in that room work better than those Gershwin speakers do, even though I know those Gershwin speakers are way better speakers. And maybe that's something we could talk about too, is, how a bad room can make speaker choice really difficult and makes it kind of hyper intensifies the differences between speakers, if that makes sense. So anyway, I think it's a good spot to wrap up this video. Thanks to all you folks that regularly watch the channel, subscribed, Patreon, members, all that stuff. And you members are not getting to see all these videos days before anybody else. That's kind of the perk that you get for being a member, is as soon as I upload a video, it goes live to the members, and it may be 4 or 5 days before it's released to the rest of the folks. So yeah, you just get to watch them a little sooner. That's the main perk. So if it sounds interesting and you want to support the channel, hit the little member button. Anyway, I think that's it for today, and we will see you next week for the Monday Monologue.